Good evening, sir. Welcome, Air Vice Marshal Bishnoi, sir. Welcome to today's webinar. Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you very much for waiting this long. I just novice on this kind of thing.
It's a great pleasure having you on the call today, sir. So we remember 31st October when we had a lovely together there in Hyderabad also, seeing you.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to having another chat with you today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We have among our participants now, sir, Group Captain Das, the Langawala Battle Hero Group Captain Das, sir, is also on the call. And Wing Commander Karnik, sir, is also on the call. And our Patek Sahib and our treasurer and so many other people are also on the call watching. I'm eagerly waiting for you to share your experiences. I was telling that we had a wonderful call yesterday, listening to your valor in both the wars. Something special about you. So our Air Vice Marshal is so fortunate that to have you speaking on those experiences today to all our participants. Welcome, sir.
I thank you for inviting me once again for this webinar, and I find myself in very distinguished company as the participants and the gathering that you have there. It's entirely my privilege to talk about 1971 war today. And
start with 65, sir.
Now I'll start with that.
Yeah. And now you may kindly start with your background, sir, before you joined the service. How and why you joined the service, thereafter, how was your training briefly, and again coming back to action in 65 when you participated in the war and did so much for the country.
Now, firstly, my own background.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I came from a small village in Punjab at the border of Rajasthan and Haryana. That time there was no Haryana, so it was only Rajasthan and Punjab and Delhi. Now, I did my graduation. In fact, I did my schooling in Lahore, and in 47, I, with my father and parents, shifted to Delhi.
Sir.
And I must tell you my experience while I was in Lahore for 9 years in the school, and all other people who were there around were not that time Pakistanis. They were all Indians.
Yes, sir.
And suddenly this imposition came on to us that who wants to go to India and who wants to remain in Pakistan. My father opted for India, so he reported to Delhi just before the partition, few days before that, and we were still in Lahore. Mother, my two younger brothers, and we came to India 4 months after the partition. And during these 4 months when we stayed there, it sounds unbelievable, but we were so happy, we were so comfortable, and we were so well looked after by our Muslim friends now, or the Pakistani friends, you may call them. And we felt sorry leaving that place after 4 months.
Okay.
Whole lot of them came to see the family of my father was in there, but my mother and my brother were put in a truck and we headed for India, crossed the border at Firozpur. Now, that is how we migrated. Now, after migrating, I had not finished my 10th class in Lahore. I was in the last few months of examination and all that. So I completed my 10th in Delhi, and after that, I joined college. Now, I joined in the field of biology and zoology. Now, all these subjects of zoology and biology were being conducted in Delhi University, whereas English classes were conducted in the college. I had joined the Hansraj College in Delhi.
Hansraj College, yes.
So one day I arrived at the Hansraj College for attending my English classes, and what I find, people were standing outside the classroom, crowded. So I got curious and asked them, how come you people are only outside and not going in yet? He said, no, we are waiting for an Indian Air Force recruiting team which is coming there to tell us what is Air Force about, what is careers in the Air Force, and how they want very young people to join that. I had never heard of the Air Force as such or what they did in service, and I got curious too. So I went inside, sat down on our desks, and soon arrived this team. There are 3 members of this team, 3 officers in uniform. They're looking very smart and nice. One was wearing the wing. I didn't know what was the wing about. It later came to know that he was one of the pilots in the Indian Air Force. I had the impression that everyone is a pilot in the Air Force that time.
Okay.
Because it was an Indian Air Force and it was about flying. Anyway, that was my first exposure to it. We were very impressed by the talk given to them. Now, these gentlemen really motivated. I don't know how many others were motivated as well, but I was sold to them, and I thought that this is the career for me. I went home with a form to be filled in and signed by my parents. And my father was away at that time on a temporary duty out of Delhi. So I asked my mother to sign it, and then I remembered suddenly that she was not educated. And she didn't know what about the signature was about. So I told her that this is that when I grow up a little more, I'll be doing some job, some work, and this is the job that I'm applying for. So I filled up this performance, and she scribbled in small Hindi, whatever she was, as a signature of hers. I gave this application to the headquarters recruiting office as this on the address given to me, and I forgot about it after that. It was quite some time later, on 26th of January parade. I'd gone with my friends to attend that, and we were returning. On the return, we stopped at a dhaba for a cup of tea, and there one of my friends said, "There are results out for joining the Air Force. You had applied for it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Forget about it. Don't look at the results. I don't know what I wrote in the examination and whether they liked it or not." But then when he looked at the roll number, my roll number was there in the list which I qualified for the interview.
Was there any preparation from your side, sir, for the examination or no?
Oh, hardly any, if you ask me. Anything, because I did not know. We didn't have those coaching colleges in
those days.
Those days who told them what to expect in examination and how to write the examination, this and that. So I just wrote what came to me, and I just happened to qualify. People were surprised, and I was more surprised. That I qualified. With that, I went for the interview. It was 5 days long interview, and we stayed 5 days at Dehradun. Selection board. At the selection board, all the exercises were given, which were mostly psychoanalysis tests and the physical performances like running, jumping, leaping, and bending, and all kind of things. And some exercises which contained the contents of leadership, where they made you leader of your group and gave you a task, and they stood by and saw how you performed it. Anyway, it so happened, once again was a surprise when I qualified there also. So
it must be meritorious.
I do not know what I was, but I was there.
Otherwise, it would have not been possible to...
And mind you, there were thousands of people who had applied for it. And 86 of us qualified to go for the medical. Next, I went for the medical examination, and I had no problem there. Only one thing, the medical officer there advised me. He says, "Son, you are joining a job which is highly stressful, and it has its own risk and fears. I'll tell you one good, and that is learn to relax." So he made me lie down. He said, "Close your eyes and think of nothing." And then he said, "Keep doing as I say." So I had my eyes closed, lying on the medical bed in front of him. He said, "Close your eyes." Close my eyes. He said, "Breathe normal." I started breathing normal. He said, "No, you're a little too fast. Slow down, slow down." And now let your limbs go absolutely limp. Then he started from there going downwards to my back and my stomach and my thighs and my legs, and finally to the
total body scan.
Keep relaxing all that. He carried on saying that over and over again, VrC. And as he said, every time he said, I got more relaxed and more relaxed. He said, "Well, just do that for even 2 minutes, and you will find that you will be once again fresh in spite of all that rest." And mind you, I have followed that since then till today. I still do this exercise every day in the morning when I get up.
Great, sir.
Right? That was the medical side. I qualified in the medical also. And I was asked to report to Jodhpur Air Force Flying College, AFFC they used to call it that time, where the basic and the intermediate training on the aircraft was.
So that was in 1953, sir?
No, 1952 we joined. 26 March exactly, we reported to Jodhpur. Now, we were all civilians, and I personally will watch for me. I had no idea at all about the services and what is expected out of us. In the civilians, we like anyone who you see in the street with long hair and all kind of fashionable mustache and some beard and some other without the beard and some unshaven and all that. So at Jodhpur railway station, we were received by an Air Force team. They were all in civil clothes and told us that there's a transport waiting. Your coolies have already taken the baggage and put into that. You board that. We didn't have the buses or the kind of tempos of cars like we have in the service today. Just it was a 3-tonner.
Yeah, for everybody 3-tonner.
Oh yes, and 3-tonner had no seats, but the steel trunks which you asked to bring with our clothes came very handy. So we first pushed the trunks and then sat on the trunks in the bus and went jumping, leaping on 3-tonner on the potted road from railway station to the Jodhpur, to the Air Force Flying College. And mind you, it was an imposing building when we arrived there. It was the officer's mess, which earlier was Maharaja's palace. But, I mean, we thought, oh God, we are come to God knows where, this 5-star stuff. But they didn't take us into that building. There was a two-story building behind that, another about 100 yards, and the truck was parked there. Now, after truck arrived there, we waited for someone to come and ask us or to tell us what next. Where do we go and what we do? So we kept waiting. There was a gentleman standing outside in the civils, and he looked at us for a while. After about 10 minutes, he said, "What are you guys waiting for?" We said, "Sir," he said that I'm in the Air Force, I'd come to receive you. So I asked, or I and other friends also asked, told him that we want the baggage to be carried and shown our accommodation somewhere so we can have a wash or something like that. He looked at with a little grin on his face. He said, "Boys, you have come to the Indian Air Force Air Defense Academy Flying College, and you are no more a civilian from today. You are an Air Force officer. You will be called here the flight cadets, and we'll address you as flight cadets. And you must learn to behave. One thing that you must learn is here in services, there is no dissent. Orders given and things you are told to do, you better do if you want to remain in the Air Force College Training School here." Things were very made clear. Still, we looked at him. He said, "Don't look at me now. Get down, pick up these boxes on your heads or shoulders, whichever way you can do, and head for this building. And there you will be told what is to be done next." We looked at each other. There is no occasion to to smile. Still, somehow we managed to pick up these boxes. I regretted that I carried so much of civil clothes with me because it's very heavy. And with those boxes on our heads, we arrived in the veranda of the building. Now, another person was standing there, again in civil clothes, and he said that you people are looking very shabby. Look at your hair, look at this and that. So we didn't know what to do because he was only pointing out what's wrong with us. So he said, "All right, now you leave your boxes here, go a little further down, you'll find there are 10 people standing there. They are barbers. They'll give you a haircut first."
Immediately.
I mean, that was the welcome. No one said you are welcome here, this and that. So we were taken to task. Now, there, this so-called barber was standing with the apron and that haircutting machine. He just started at random without even caring any formalities on the left, right, center. And we found that our scalps were like the untrained person's plowed field. There were hair somewhere, no hair, they were runways. And he said that this is the runway, all kind of things. And at the end of it, all 86 of us couldn't be recognized by those people who came together few hours back. And we had hardly spoken to each other because we never knew each other even before that. First time we were coming in contact with each other.
How did you feel, sir, losing that much of hair?
And then after the haircut, at the end of it, the person again announced, "Now, before you go any further, you will be firstly medical examined and seen you are nice and fine." Now, we were taken to the room, and there were 4 people sitting on the table with stethoscopes around their neck, and the doctors. They said, "Gentlemen, you are welcome here, and you have to be first medically cleared before you enter the building and service after that." And then he said, "Don't be surprised. I want you to first undress yourself." No, this was
in the public,
in front of 86 people and the other people who were there. It was a public. Still, it was a public. We could not known each other at all. Now, firstly, we looked at each other, and then there was hesitation. And then this gentleman who told us, "Okay, don't disobey any orders if you want to stay here," came to our mind. Looking at the ceiling, we started ripping off the shirt, banyan, pants, and all that. and we were on our birthday suits.
But this, okay.
Now, it was very embarrassing standing there. And finally, we couldn't look at the ceiling forever. And we saw each other also. Now, we found there was no difference. We were all alike. We had all same hand, limbs, and whatever else was there, similar to each other.
Yeah.
And then he said, line up, and all of you walk in front of me, or the table, and we'll have a look at you. So in that formation, on a streamline of 86 people in long queue, we went past the table. At the end of it, now we were familiar with each other. We had known each other. And we were alike, like someone else said earlier, that when you prick your finger with the blood comes out, it was red for all.
Yes.
We all had red blood and everything else was similar. All right. Now, certain amount of formality was over. Then they asked us all kind of embarrassing questions about personal lives and this and that thing, and we replied to the extent a civilian who just inducted 2 hours back into the service life could reply. Then they sent us for the lunch. So now you can put your boxes in the boxes. They showed the rooms. They showed us the beds. In each room, there were 4 rooms, 2 at the ground floor and 2 bedrooms on first floor. We were almost 15 to 16 of us in each room. It had 4 bathrooms on the corner and single bed and 1 table next to the bed. That's all. And we looked around for Almara and this and that thing. You take our clothes. And this gentleman said, there are no such Almara things in this room. You push this trunk of your suit trunk under the bed, and every day take it out, put the dirty clothes out, the Dhobi will take it, and you dress up and come. And very shortly you will be issued with the uniforms and all the other things. So that was our welcome. And it is only after a day or so we came to know the people who were ordering us, examining us, and telling us various things for the last 2 days. They were not the doctors or anyone else. They were senior cadets who were a co-senior to us.
Okay.
And now, after finishing the half term of theirs had gone further to the second term, and we filled in their place.
Okay.
So it in a way, it was, what you call ragging in the colleges or schools that time, those days. This was kind of ragging. But the purpose of that was to break down our civil background and to bring us and to make us realize that now you are not a civilian, you are part of an organized and disciplined force which fights for the nation as one.
Correct, sir. Correct. People go with different backgrounds of language and areas and regions.
Absolutely, because we had the people who had come from villages like me. Some of them had not even ridden a bicycle, leave alone on car or motorcycle or something like that. There were odd ones who had never seen the train even before.
Correct.
He boarded from his village to Jodhpur. Anyway, it was nice, and when we went for lunch on that day, we looked at each other and we started laughing at each other and joking, and it looked as if we had known each other for very, very, very long, because there was nothing left to be known at that stage.
Correct.
Everything was known to us.
Okay.
Then it started the flying training. After about 86 people, large number of them got suspended because they did not show the aptitude for flying.
Okay.
Now, flying is a skill.
Yes, sir.
It's an art, and you can learn it to an extent, but you can't master it unless you have the built-in talent for that kind of thing. So also the Air Force didn't want everyone to join the Air Force and get into it at an average or below average standard. They wanted exception above the average people.
Yes, sir.
So we were given only maximum of that. I was telling you that we wanted the good people, the capable people to come into service. And they didn't give us a much of chance. Just 10 sorties of those maximum. On the 10th sortie, you were put up for suspension from flying. Okay? After the 10 sorties, you couldn't fly. And before that, 4 or 5 sorties, if you're not fit enough, they give you change in instructor, another instructor, because maybe you're not compatible with your instructor.
Okay.
You can't receive him properly. So after a couple of changes of instructors, within those 10 sorties, on 10th sortie, you were out if you didn't make it.
Okay.
And these cadets, flight cadets who were not making it, they were sent to the navigation and some of them to the ground duty. And I was surprised that time. I was in the college for the BSc and didn't finish it and came to the Air Force. There were people with us who had done the MAs, postgraduates.
Achha, they were all there.
So at Jodhpur, we finished our flying and then we were sent to fighter training wing and the transport training wing. We divided in 2 streams after passing out from Jodhpur. we got commissioned that time as pilot officers. Now we were wearing the wing, we were wearing a uniform, and we were wearing the rank of pilot officer. Now, next, I was in the fighter stream. We went to Hakim Pit and flew Spitfires. But 40 hours of flying there we lost a couple of people in the accidents. They didn't live through to continue with us.
Okay.
It was sad, but there it was. And that was the first time we came to realize it is not a joke. Flying has its own built-in problems and risks. And mind you, at that young age of 17 and a half or something, you learn the first thing to make decisions.
Yes, sir.
Because you are alone in the aircraft,
Yes,
and aircraft doesn't give you more than a few seconds to decide
to make a decision
before it hits the ground. So you learn to make quick decisions under the situation, whatever it was,
sir,
to survive. And that comes handy, whereas many people even at later ages can't take the decision.
Correct, sir.
So decision making was the first of the qualities we imbibed and mastered it in another way.
Sir.
Now, from the Hakim Pit, I was posted to a fighter squadron. First fighter squadron was number 1 squadron, flying vampires at Parliament. So I joined number 1 squadron, and squadron had about 14 or 15 pilots. Most of them were pilot officers and flying officers. The flight lieutenant was the flight commander, and the squadron leader was the squadron commander.
Those days.
Today you have group captain and squadron commander.
Yeah, squadron commander.
But those days we had squadron leaders.
Okay.
And all 14 or 15 of us were unmarried.
Bachelors. Okay.
So that was the kind of culture in the Air Force that time.
Okay.
And the fighter pilot had the privilege. If you ever saw on Saturday when they got together for a glass of beer in the bar, you could make out which is the fighter pilot because he had the top button of his uniform open.
Okay. Why, sir? Why?
He claimed the superiority
amongst
the pilot, amongst the own community.
Yes, yes.
And you could make it out, and of course, naturally, after a glass of beer, out kind of bragging, we were the loudest also. So, from this squadron, after about a year and a half of flying the vampires, I was sent to the flying instructor school to be trained as an instructor for flying. I reported to Tamram, flying instructor school, FIS as you call it, and did my graduation into learning to teach flying to the others.
Yes, sir.
After that, we carried out some other associated courses like methods of learning and teaching and various other things. And I reported back to Jodhpur as a flying instructor in 1956 January. There, I served for 3.5 years in Jodhpur. And during this flying at Jodhpur, I had large number of the pilots trained under me. And mind you, it came so handy after I left teaching and went back to the squadron or the desk job. I had known so many large number of people, and I knew them well because they were my pupils at that time.
Okay.
Now, after my tenure at Jodhpur, I was posted. I was not married then, and I was posted to Indore in the NCC Indore.
NCC, okay.
They were flying gliders in the schools and colleges of the NCC. That was not a very kind of job that I was looking forward to. But when I knew that I might be posted to a place like this, I hurriedly did my A2 category. That is, upgraded my B category as an instructor, Q5 B category to A2. And A2 was the minimum requirement to go to flying instructor school as an instructor in the instructor school there now.
Would there be any test for that, sir?
Beg pardon?
Would there be any test to qualify for that?
No, the very fact that I was the A2 instructor qualified by the Aircrew Examining Board, they had examined me before that. So that was the qualification itself. And the moment the headquarters came to know that they posted me at the wrong place, in 3 months I was pulled out from Indore and sent to flying instructor school back, where one time I was a student of theirs. Now I was an instructor at Tamram. I served about a year and a half there. And during my stay in FIS, I did upgrade my instructor category to the highest category available in the Indian Air Force, that was A1 Q5.
A1 also, yes.
A1. I did that, and then I got posted to a hunter squadron in 1961, June somewhere. I remained with the hunter squadron. The squadron was at Palam, and from the squadron, I got posted now the Aircrew Examining Board, which was also at Palam.
Yes, sir.
So I became now a flight commander, C flight of Aircrew Examining Board, whose responsibility was to look after the flying training in the Indian Air Force and categorize and standardize all the instructors in the Indian Air Force, and also carry out percentage checks of the students who were learning flying and to see how well our schools are doing in teaching them flying.
Inspections. Okay, sir.
Yes. Now it just so happens that after a year and a half of my stay in AAB, I met a flying accident there. In H-2 aircraft, soon after we got airborne at Allahabad on the runway, engine packed up.
Oh.
It is a single engine aircraft and we crash landed at the fence of the airfield and got big jolt. Aircraft of course was badly damaged, but so was our spines.
My God. Okay.
So then we carried, the ambulance arrived and we were carried to the MH Allahabad, and from there they said that you have a fracture in the lumbar 5 and you have to be put in plaster. Mind you, it was in June 1964 and that is around that period when Jawaharlal Nehru died. I was in the hospital at Allahabad.
Sir.
So he said you have to be put in plaster. June was hot, as you know, in Allahabad and UP. It's very hot and you're sweaty also. So he said there's one way that you can avoid being plaster from your chest downwards is that you promise that you will not move lying on the bed.
Okay.
Because that will not help in recovery of your spine. So I promised, and so did the other pilot who was with me. We both had same kind of thing.
Both were together, sir? Both together?
Both together. And at Allahabad, I laid on my back for a month and a half, and then they shifted us to Delhi in a hospital, MH, military hospital as they called it that time.
Yeah.
There I stayed for another 2 months, not moving sideways at all, or not bending or something like that. Whereas my friend who was with me, who was also damaged as badly as I was, did from time to time walk out of the bed and went for a little stroll here and there and do this and that and that.
Oh.
And mind you, that person never got fit enough to fly in the Indian Air Force. He was asked to leave the Air Force and he joined Air India someday later.
My God.
Anyway,
He lost the opportunity.
After 4 months, I was discharged from the hospital, lying 4 months without any movement. It was for a few days. I didn't know whether I had the legs or not underneath me.
Okay.
I was being supported to walk and this and that. Then I was called for the review board, medical review board, 3 months later.
Yeah.
3 months later, when I went back to the review board, during that period, I had done strenuous exercises in the back. What the doctor had told me as physiotherapist also. And I found myself absolutely fit.
Very good.
Now, problem was that the medical routine, they have their own schedules. They give you 3 months lower category, another 3 months, and maybe another 3 months, or maybe finally say that sorry, you are not fit for flying, or give you a category. Yeah. So my whole career was at stake at the stage. So when I went for the review board, this person, someone at the MH, he said, all right, you seem to have recouped very well, and come back after. Before he finished his sentence, I said, sir, please, this is my career. And if I'm fit for flying, give me fit. And if I'm not fit for flying, well, you do whatever you want. But just on matter of routine and procedure, that another 3 months or 6 months I have to be given lower medical category, please don't do that to me. He looked at me. He says, well, I have to follow the procedures which are given to me. So I said, I'd like to see your boss, sir. So there's a major general.
Okay.
I went to him. So I told him the same thing. I said, you make me do all the exercises if you want. Satisfy yourself. But just don't follow the procedure, say another 3 months later. Okay. And mind you, he made me do all kinds of things, jumping, leaping, bending, crawling under the table and all that. And at the end of it, he looked at me, smiled. He says, you're fit. So I got back to flying.
Great.
That's 4 months and 3 months, 7 months total. Back to examining board, and then 1965 arrived. It was in 64, and the AAB from Palam had shifted to Hindon. Hindon was a new civil base built that time, and the Air Force was wanting to shift the operation from Palam, except the VVIP squadron, all the other flying units and the ground units to Hindon. Hindon was a civil airfield, not equipped for our kind of requirement. And when I took the first flying unit, which was the aircrew examining, with our 2 aircraft, we had 1 Vampire and 1 Dakota. These 2, 1 Harvard also, 3 aircraft, we flew to Hindon, the first flying unit which arrived at Hindon at the opening on 25th March precisely on 1965.
Oh my God, I remember still.
Oh yes, because these things are, a kind of marking points on that in the life. Okay. And then 7 days later, Chief for the Air Force decided to visit Hindon And I was the only flying unit which was there. There were 2 helicopter units which were in the process of shifting at that time. Now he came to look at the place, and now we wanted to present a good surrounding where we were living and all that. So we cleaned up the place and brought some plants from outside, dug up holes and put the plants inside and watered them. Not that they will grow in 5 days, but still it made the place presentable.
Okay.
And there was no officers' mess there that time. There was no married accommodation except some accommodation which was built for the working engineers of the civil there during their construction of the place. And that's all. Now I was married then. My family